Welcome everyone, my name is Juan Rocha and today we will talk about the general concept of the interview. Before we start, let's remember that the communication depends on the context, meaning individual cognitive and the personal mechanisms. Well, let's start with the linear and contextual communicative models. According to Turian, the linear models are those that conceive communication as a linear, directional process between two characteristics, poles, sender and receiver. In these models, based on the technical conception of the communication, the decision-making capacity of the source of influence resides in the sender, while the receiver adopts the passive role, subject to the influence of the communication action to the sender. In this case, the communication is conceived as a system whose parts are specialized in the transmission of information. This model establishes as an initial element an information source, followed by a transmitter that, through a signal which might suffer from interference or noise, is sent through a channel and received by a receiver, which is considered the recipient of the message. This model anticipates and adapts Shannon and Weaver's model to the social communication by retaining its essential elements: sender, message, channel, receiver, and adapting the key issue from the point of view of propaganda, the effect of communication. LASSWELL'S model proposes an interventionist and manipulative idea of communication, where the sender holds on the power and capacity to the influence, and the receiver is relegated to the passive role, since his reaction to the communication is catalogued in behaviorist terms within the desirable and undesirable spectrum. However, this linear model showed a leading attention to the social context of the communication and absence of the feedback. Well, about the context model, Dimbley and Burton propose a linear model of communication that takes into account context and feedback. Similarly, Berker, Rosenfeld, and Samavar suggest an interactive process model. With respect to the feedback, it should be noted that when feedback happens, namely when the receiver returns information related to the message, the receiver takes up the role of sender, while the sender takes up the role of the receiver. Thus, the contextual or interactive process model establishes that two linear models participate in conjunction which aid each other. In the process of the communication, the ability to communicate with the personal effectiveness and the social appropriateness must be achieved. According to Trallum and Jensen, these are developed at two levels. Superficial level, called performance competence, consisting of the observable communicative behaviors, and deep level, called prudential competence, consisting of the cognitive activity and knowledge necessary to generate the appropriate action. According to Norton, the communicative style is the way an individual interacts verbally, non-verbally, and paraverbally, voice, traits, attitudes, tone and intensity, and corporality. Chas, in his analysis of the relation between cognition and communication, mentions the role of the mental representation as well as the process by which representation is assembled to carry out communicative tasks. Dixon, for his part, mentioned that the cognitive process that may be represented in the communicative process are perception, comparison, encoding, decoding, compression, question, formulation, recognition, reformulation, and meta-communication. The relation between the communicative process and the interview method becomes important for the psychologist because it is through his method, and the exercise of the therapy session with a therapeutic purpose allows the professional to reach a good diagnosis. The work of the communicative process is essential to communicate accurately, with the personal effectiveness and the social appropriateness as indicated by Trallum and Jensen. For example, in the therapeutic, it is relevant how to formulate questions and communicative skills, such as verbal and non-verbal communication influence to development of the method. An interview allows collecting relevant information for evaluation or diagnosis, and even more relevant, in the clinical file in order to explore a verifying way the patient's symptoms.